Hi, David.
Hey Joe, how are ya?
I'm good. Hey, thank you for being patient and toggling things around. I appreciate it.
Not a problem, not a problem.
Great to meet you. Where are you coming out of?
I am in Central Florida, so about 10 minutes north of Disney area.
Okay, cool. I went to
Yeah.
I went to Orlando when I was 12, and everything was so much different. In fact, I remember the hotel I stayed in. They were actually having a meeting on that new Coke, and it was all like
Really?
top level. Yeah,
No way.
it was that long ago. And I remember
Wow.
when I got back home, it got released and then just went away fast. So it was wild.
Really, really.
Yeah.
What, the sugar-free Coke or something? Or
It was like a new formula. I think they were trying to compete with
huh.
Pepsi, so they wanted to have like something that tasted like that. They wanted to become the biggest monopoly. They wanted to be Bill Gates and just
Get rid of those
squash
guys. Come
Netscape.
on.
I know.
Coca-Cola's old Pepsi, and Pepsi's got a little bit more bubbles in it, I jokingly say. So I was like,
Yeah.
Coca-Cola's old Pepsi, tastes a little
Yeah.
bit flatter.
Absolutely. Yeah. So
Uh,
it didn't work out. Karma has a way of balancing out everything.
that's for sure. That is for sure.
Well, hey man, speaking of karma and balancing things, we lived through quite a thing with COVID for the last 3 years. How did you survive it? And as a busy guy, how did it change the way that you do things now?
Well, I'm in the tech field, so it wasn't that much different of a life for me. I wouldn't say I regularly see people on a daily basis, and it just didn't change a lot for me. It did for my family. They're out and about all the time, and then when everything closed down, they're like, "What do we do?" We usually go out all the time, and so I think it was closed for a little bit in Florida, but eventually they opened it up a lot. But the business world, tech, those things flourished in the whole COVID virus. Actually being in tech since I was like 16, 17, I don't know, I kind of wondered, why do people go to work? Like, I literally thought that. I thought, like, you could do so much from your computers. And what, that was probably back up in the days of dial-up and probably DSL. It was probably about there. So I wondered when there would be a time when people would work, and I just never saw it happen until COVID. I'm like, oh, this is the switch. It's
Yeah.
happening, where everybody went digital.
Well, look at us now on Zoom. I mean, who would have known that this technology would be as powerful and as efficient as it's been, and it would just sweep the world?
Yeah, it definitely has changed a lot. Like, I saw many interviews happen over, just the what would they call those? It went through a T1 line, Comrex, I believe. You'd connect
Yeah.
your phone, your microphone right into it. You could dial somebody out through it's not the DSL line, but it's a digital line, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that would be the main form of doing radio interviews and podcasts, and now everything's over the internet.
Yeah. It's wild how far
It
we've
really
come
is.
in such a short amount of time. I remember when I started doing this, I my main bread and butter is jazz radio. And the guy, a great friend of mine who has a radio show and would help me with the interviews, he was an old engineer. So he had all the old equipment from the radio stations here in Kansas City. And we would
Hmm.
go through an analog line through an old telephone that would go through the board. And we would get really crisp, clear audio. And then I said, hey, when you're not around, I need to do this too. So I found an app and it went through the phone. And now I've graduated to Zoom and mics and better sound. So it's crazy how far we've come and how easy it is to administer this.
It is a lot easier than it was. I remember, so way, way back when, my dad had put in the audio boards and lights and cameras in the first old church. Like, it was an 1800s style church. But whenever they would do an upgrade, the old 8-channel Mackie board would come home and sit in, the basement, because one of the channels didn't work. And I grew up around all of that analog RCA plugs, quarter-inch jacks, XLRs. And, I would live that transition between analog to digital. I remember buying a 4-channel Firewire PCI card for my computer, thinking,
Wow.
oh my goodness, I can record 4 lines at the same time. Well, only 2 if it's stereo. But
Yeah.
what a world is different. You can do multi-channeling on your iPhone now.
Uh-huh. Yeah, it's insane. So
Yeah.
we've obviously established tech. There's a lot of things that go into what you do on paper. So let's simplify this. I'm going to put you in front of a bunch of third graders at a career day. One of the kids looks up and says, hey, what do you do for a living? How do you answer that child?
Well, I'm inventing the first ever social-based TV network for small businesses.
Okay.
So that's what I'd probably try to, and I would say And I'm trying to connect all the businesses together so that they can kind of share and advertise what they do on their TV screens.
So talk to me a little bit about how you got here. Where were you born and raised? What gave you this fascination for tech and to get like a patent and to do these things that you do?
Well, it did, I took a little of a break into the programming and world. Like I kind of grew up around that media. I remember having an old shoulder VHS camera that had to be plugged in to a physical port with an amplifier or a power supply. I don't remember exactly what the cord is, but I could pick it out because I played with that shooting on a green screen. Like this was when I was 10. Like I had all this old, my dad had all this old equipment. So I started playing with that before the computer. And then when the computer came around, I just loved the undo button. I loved trying things and then saying, well, that didn't work. Okay, nobody can make fun of me. I could just hit the delete button, recreate it. And then Photoshop came out, right? And then video editing. But then after, you say, well, okay, this is creative world. I got to make some really good money. And you start building applications and websites and databases and software. So I kind of took that for about 4, 5, 6, 7 years into that world of deep into the database and software applications. And then through that, I wrote a patent with my co-founders for delivering food with different distributors for small businesses. And so out of that, we said, well, how do we get into those businesses? How do we talk to them? How do we advertise to them? And one of the partners said, hey, can we somehow create an advertisement on their television? And that kind of molded into this idea for a small business television channel, something that they could show their food on, maybe show the local weather and social media. And it morphed into what tweva is now, the whole conglomerate of a social TV company. But that's kind of an overview of, it's been a long time, but we kind of took the break into that programming world that changed the whole idea of saying, wow, we can create software for people, but then you want to do it at a scale, at a larger scale.
That's amazing. That's a great idea. And it just weaves into what we're already doing, which is everybody's talking one way or another via technology, whether it's us or Facebook or Twitter or whatever it is. So,
yeah, but they can't access TVs. Like that's the one thing we looked around and we're like, okay, even if you had a podcast, even if you have a 4K camera in your back pocket, you still can't access that piece.
Yeah.
And there's no like community channel where you could say like, oh, let me add something to that. Right.
Yeah.
Let me share a cool motorcycle that I just saw. Like I want to show a cool chopper that I just saw outside the coffee shop. Right. Because in 10 minutes, the thing's gone. Hey, did you see it? No, I didn't see it. Well, now I can, right? Now I can show something that just happened there. And it kind of lives. It lives for 24, 48, 72 hours.
Sure. So who's been kind of a hero or an inspiration for you?
Ooh, I have multiples because in that tech world, it's anybody that's nerdy, I guess. I didn't grow up around sports a lot. I was homeschooled. I didn't end up going to college. So I didn't really follow that sports side of things. So anybody with a tech background, I say, hey, what do you know that I don't know? And I kind of have like a addiction to that educational piece of, could this connect to that? What would it take to do it? Yeah. So I don't know. I look at heroes or people that I look up to as sections. So I might take, this guy's really good at family. I'll take that piece. I don't take his whole piece. This guy might be really good at tech. I might take his tech piece. And I form all those pieces together and say, okay, if I'm talking about family life, I'm not going to look at this guy, right? He can't do this. I'll look at this person over here. So it's really whoever's might be popular and I'm looking at right now.
Yeah. So in the world of tech, if you can meet anybody and pick their brain, who would it be? Who would you love to meet?
That's a good question. I don't really know. It would be the next step up from where I'm at because I know that there's a knowledge gap between, you talk to somebody so high and it's like you can't even relate. Yeah. So you spend an hour with them and the ideas would be so different. But I guess the general Elon Musk would be fun to talk to for a little bit. But I still think some of them are so many light years ahead of where I'm at. I need somebody just a little bit above.
Yeah.
Um, that's what I figured out with when we went to venture capital. There's literally levels in management and bigger companies. And sometimes, going from a one person show to a 10, we think it's the same as going from 1 to 100, and it's not. It's literally another level. You get to 20 to 50 people, and then 100 to 200 people. But yeah, I would say, the big wigs, if I could talk to them, I'd love to. But there's so much content now, right? With
Oh
podcasts, and
man,
you could
it's
just turn it on and listen to 4 hours, and I'm going like, wow, yeah, would have never came up with that one.
yeah, it's mind-boggling. What's been one of the best tech advancements that you've seen in our lifetime? Like what you've admired, like the biggest leap that we've been through?
I really like the cell phone. I started. Do you remember HP came out with a Palm top computer?
Yeah, I believe so.
It was heavy. I remember carrying that. It had to be young, 10, 12, 13, in my jacket pocket. And it would slide my jacket one way because it was so heavy. But I loved this idea of having a computer in my pocket.
Yeah.
And I always thought this is going to be the future. So I saved up everything to buy this $600 mini computer that couldn't connect to the internet, couldn't do any, it really could do nothing, but I could open it up and look like, what's a spreadsheet? Okay, that's cool. I didn't even know what I would do with it back then, because that's when I was playing with the media stuff. But then when that smartphone came out, I went right to that Trio 650, and I just thought, wow, this is amazing. Now, I didn't think it would get to the iPhone, but that has really changed, I think, most of our world more than anything really has.
I mean, we all have computers, and that's it. We all have a computer at our disposal,
Yep. And it's small, and the power, like, you remember growing up around, even my first laptop, it was 45 minutes to 2 hours, and it was cooked. So you had to think, okay, I'm going to go to this location, and this is what I'm going to do. Yeah. And with the cell phone being there all day, it's kind of really being part of it, what we do, And so what can you do with a cell phone that could change people's lives? I mean, that's really where a lot of people with these apps are what they're doing now.
There was a theory for a while, because I'm in technology. I'm a tech guy for a school district by day, and I've been in technology for a long time. And I remember there was a theory, and I don't know if this is valid or not, but people talked about that leap from solid state to digital and how fast it happened. And they kind of equated to Roswell. Like once the government got a hold of technology that was way above and beyond what we were doing, there was this kind of light bulb that went off, and the government develops all of this, and then civilians get it later. So there's this kind of been this theory where humans didn't do this. We just kind of took it on and said, yeah, we're the ones that did it. And we ran with it because everything really did blow up pretty fast. I mean, even when you talk about the iPhone, I still remember when the iPad came out, people were getting all weird about the name of it. Like, why does it have to be called a pad and all this stuff? And people were taking pot shots at it. And look at it. It's one of the best things on the planet right now, tech-wise, that people indulge in.
It is. It's got, I got the latest M1 processor. It's about a year old now. M1 processor, got the Magic Keyboard, bought the whole thing. I'm going, this thing is faster than my MacBook Pro from 3 years ago. Yeah. With the Intel processor, but the refinement of not only the ARM processor, but then all of the software that went along with it for the battery life. And it's amazing. I remember the spinning hard drives, when you turn on your computers, and well, that's not solid state, but that's right. It's digital, it's not analog. But that change over to digital has definitely changed things. Yeah. I remember reading in, I think it was a Popular Science years more than 20 years ago, it had to be, something about taking pictures, surveillance, and solid state memory, as far as like four megapixel camera, and it has this much, and I'm going, wow, what would anybody need that for? Yeah, right. Yeah. Now we have it in our back pocket. That's it. Everybody's a photographer. So what is the ultimate motivator for you? What is it that gets you up in the morning, the spark for you? What motivates you? I don't know exactly what that is. I have it. I've talked to other entrepreneurs, and they just go, do you have that drive? And I'm like, yeah, I just love it. I love creating. I love doing. My wife will say, you work a lot. And I go, yeah, but it's kind of like it's work, it's a hobby, it's what I like, all combined into one piece.
Yeah.
I think the education addiction is somehow hiding the fact of the hours, you know,
Yeah.
but I just love to create things. And then when I see it on that screen, I go like, wow, that's amazing. It's scalable, right? It has a bigger purpose to it. Um, and then, but years ago, I guess I was probably stuck in the programming by yourself, doing something and figuring out how it works. But then when you partner with people that know people and you can bring something to market, it blows your mind even bigger at that point. You're like, wow, this could make dramatic effect on a lot of people's lives.
Absolutely. So what's been your best client success story that you've been involved with?
Well, in tweva.
Yeah, or anything that
Or
you've done professionally.
I mean, most of them over time. I mean, you build products for people over time and you make sure that they work. And if they don't work, you keep working on it. But I love creating efficiencies for businesses. So when I was doing this programming, I would sit around at their office and I would say, hey, let me just watch the secretary for like 3 hours. And I would see her do specific things. And then I would love to kind of create an automation to do that in the software. And so, but I always jokingly told my wife, I said, I don't get paid enough. In the software world, you're replicating not a robot, but you're doing tasks like copying an Excel sheet or an algorithm that somebody might write down on a paper. And you're programming that and you think that's going to be good for 10, 20 years, longer than that. And I totally missed out on Bitcoin. I wish
Yeah.
I should have had it, because that was a bunch of programmers that got together and be like, hey, we hate this financial system. We're going to create something for the digital nerds and
Yep.
we'll finally get paid on it, But yeah, I should have bought loads of that, but I didn't see it ever going to 70,000. But client success story, a lot of them, I mean, I've been with some of the failed startups where, you kind of build a product down and it doesn't make it in market that well. But a lot of the successes are, in the tweva world, at least, it's installing that TV and bringing users into their customer restaurant where they're now building relationships with those people. So like one instance is this place Naples, where it's one of the starting businesses with tweva. They put in all tweva TVs. They took out their local TVs, and we put up pictures of local, the people that work there for the locals. So when you go into the restaurant, you can see, hey, there's the server, and they have a golden retriever at home. They like to surf on the weekends. And what this did was it kind of created connections between the customers that walk in and the server. So instead of just saying, hi, here's your table, it's, hey, I have a puppy too, right? Or I have a dog too. And so we really saw it connect people and make them happier when they sit there, kind of introduce them to who's working there. And it's not just get me my plate of spaghetti or pizza. It's Sally the server, right? Or Bob, the person in the back flipping the burgers.
Yeah.
So I would say that's probably the best success story on a larger scale. I mean, I have little, everybody has little, you create a software for this or that, but I like this bigger picture.
Yeah.
Success stories.
Yeah. I've asked people this question, and this is going to bring Bitcoin into it. If you have a dream tonight, you run into the 20-year-old version of yourself, and you could give that version of you a piece of advice based on the wisdom you've gained in your life, what would you tell that young version of you?
Oh my goodness. I'd probably give him a couple of lottery tickets, winnings. I would say network more, because the connections, like I said, I started with the computers and I built a lot of the knowledge of how to do things. But that networking side, I kind of got caught up into, we can create a process for this, we can create a process for that. But in the end, it's still people.
Yeah.
You still need people to run all these pieces. I think people are getting worried about AI. Yeah, it's going to help us along. I think people got worried about the car. I think people got worried about the plane, the train, the shovel, right? Everything. Every technological advancement we had, people were afraid of. But you still need human relationships. You still need networks of people, of capital investors. So I would go back to myself and say, hey, look, here's a lottery lottery tickets, you're going to be alone with $1 billion. What's the point, right? Can you make a dent or an impact on society? Then do it. And these are the people that you should probably go befriend. Elon Musk, Bill Gates, some of these other people. Try to go talk to some bigwigs out there. That's probably the advice I would give myself.
Right on. So let me ask you this. You know, everyone out there has a perception of you, family, friends, clients, colleagues, but you run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
Ooh, again, that's a scale that's growing every day, because of the behind the scenes. I always thought I was this, and over time, each little success here and there, you go, wow, that's really not that bad. Okay, I am that person, right? And so the light went off, I think it was last year, and we had went to a 4th of July party, and I think we were just going to venture capital, and I was so excited. Oh my goodness, there's going to be 100 people here. I'm going to meet somebody else in the investment world. And it was just a 4th of July party, but still, it's like a lot of people. And one by one, I went around and I said, da 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 da. And I couldn't find anybody. And so that really changed my mind. I go, weird. That means I'm the one. Okay, that's strange. Now, if you didn't see that and you got all the way here, what other parts in your life are you not seeing that you are? And if you are that person, are you then in a place of helping others? Because if we always perceive ourselves as lower, then, oh, I can't do this, I can't do that, you're not really in an area to serve. But if you understand that you're at I wouldn't say an advantage, but just a different point, you become your responsibility is now to help others. And so I think a lot of the issues that people have, oh, I can't do this, I can't do that. I think it's really a perception of you don't really know where you're at, because wherever you are, there's always few people that need help.
Yeah.
And so I changed my brain to start thinking completely different like that. And it's changed a lot of different areas in my life to be like, wow, okay, if I'm that person, we need to be able to go forward and do these things, even down to hanging out with the grandparents, going and doing the parties for Thanksgiving and Christmas. Well, at what age does that shift happen?
Yeah.
Right. When you're either taking the kids or you're saying, I'm throwing the party, I'm doing the action. Because when you talk to other people, it's like, oh, well, da 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 da. You're like, yeah, but you're at that age now, So you learn and grow every day, right?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. So, David, if you could witness any event in human history with your own eyes, what would you love to have seen?
With my own eyes. Oh my word. I have never thought about that kind of a question. Oh, I don't even know. I don't even know.
So how about this? While you think about that, as an author, what was the first book that you read that really like opened the door to you wanting to either write or to read more?
The Magic of Thinking Big. That was an incredible book to start thinking bigger. That was years ago. And then How to Win Friends and Influence People. Again, being that behind the scenes person, you start reading these they're more popular, right? They're the more popular older, but there are people relationship books.
Yeah.
And I kind of thought, wow, what do I not know? Because my father was he's an electrical contractor, but also, he had the equipment. So he worked in sound and audio and video. So to me, I always said, man, we can figure most things out, right? We can do a lot of these things. But then when you started reading books that took 5 years to read about philosophies of how this happens or that happens, you go like, wow, there's so many pieces that can fit together. And because if 100 people work on a project, it's times 100, right? What I'm thinking currently, it's times 100. So those two books really opened my mind. And now it's whatever I have time for running the startup.
Yeah, I get it.
Sometimes it's audiobooks.
Yeah, no, and that's how my brain works. I prefer it. So let's whittle down this history question. Let's say you could either be in the room for the eureka moment for Steve Jobs or in the room for the eureka moment with Bill Gates. Where are you going?
Steve Jobs. I always say Steve Jobs. You know, I wasn't an Apple guy growing up,
Yeah.
but I had a friend and he's like, Dave, I'll just build me a website and I will give you a MacBook. You have to see it. So I did. And he shipped me one from New Jersey, where I grew up. And I was like, wow, this thing doesn't get viruses. Wow. Battery lasts a little long. And I wasn't going to CompUSA every two months to get new memory, to get bigger hard drive, because remember what happened? You had a virus on your computer, you had to restart. So hey, while I'm rebuilding, I'll get no more memory or I'll change the processor. And I figured out that the concentration level of not focusing on the equipment, but focusing on the idea or the concept that you were there to do was actually more profitable than the actual equipment that you were working on.
Yeah.
That a light bulb went off at that point, and I went, oh my goodness, there's something here.
Yeah.
Even if it's 4 seconds slower in 3 years because you're using older Mac equipment, you still have focused more time on what you were building.
Yeah.
So I would probably say Steve Jobs.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I think so. I was a Windows guy, obviously. I mean, that's all we had. We had PCs, gateways, Dells.
Yeah.
But yeah, once I got my first MacBook in '08, I still have it, still intact, still in good shape. It's a little slower, but like it's solid.
That's
You don't know
amazing.
until you do it.
Yeah. Yeah. I still had the graphics processor went on. I had a 17? It was a 17 MacBook Pro. And it was still plugged in, running a couple of print servers and a few other things. It was getting less and less, but it finally died like 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
I'm going but I think it was an 11.
Yeah.
I think it was an 11, but that's 12-year-old laptop.
Yeah. It's wild.
I'm going that's pretty good for being a laptop.
That's
and the
great.
only reason it went is because Apple that year was testing leadless solder. So when they balled, I think it's called the joints in balled the solder joints in between the graphics processor, they were one or two of them were lifting up and it would cut out the display.
Wow. That's wild.
But now they figured it out because now they're making millions of iPads and phones, I guess leadless in their solder.
Yeah, for sure. Well, David, if anyone wants to learn about your company, anything pertaining to your world, where do they go?
You can go to connect.tweva.com or just tweva.com or hit us up on social media. We're all over.
Cool. Hey, David, this has been great, man. Thank you so much for taking time out and opening up. It's always refreshing to talk to a fellow tech guy.
Hey, I love talking tech, so it was fun for me too. And thanks for having me on the show.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Have a great day.
All right.